Here we are. Fuck. It's been, I don't even know how many pay-per-views, Dan, but it's been a while. We got you back on. You drinking that large jug of water. You know what I mean? That tells me something. Like you've been training hard,
What
right?
does that? What does that? Drinking water. What does that tell you? You know what I mean?
I don't know. For some reason, when I see fighters carrying around that big jug of water, it just tells me like something
Well,
serious is
that
happening.
would generally mean fight week, but that's obviously not the case.
Exactly. Well, let's just get it out the way. Is there something in Let's just get it out the way. Is there something
We
brewing?
just cut
Yeah,
to
is
the
there
chase.
something brewing? I'm just gonna throw. Is there
I have a
something
fight.
brewing?
I have a fight.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
have a fight.
All right. That's
That's
good.
as much. That's as much as I know. I've
Okay.
been told. I've been told to get my ass in training camp. So I've been in training camp for a while. Obviously, after the last fight, I made it pretty clear that I wanted to fight on Perth.
Mm-hmm.
So I just jumped straight back into training. Ever since then, and nothing really came to fruition from that. Even though my best efforts saying that I'd fight someone ranked, unranked, but that never will not be Perth. It will
Mm-hmm.
not be Perth, sir. That is definitely official, but maybe soon after Perth. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Well, if
Maybe
I'm gonna put
something.
my tinfoil hat on, you know what I mean?
Maybe
I'm gonna
after Perth.
predict. I'm gonna make a guess. You don't have to answer. You don't have to make faces. You don't have to like insinuate anything. But I'm gonna make a guess. March, London, maybe. There's some good fights on that card.
Let me tell you right now, London's too fucking far away. Let's just say I've done
Oh.
that. Let's just say I've done that.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
just say
Oh
I've
yeah. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
say the only time I'm ever gonna go back to London is for a beer. Let me tell you that. Let me tell you something for nothing. It ain't gonna be.
All right.
I ain't flying all that way for this fight. I tell you that.
Yeah. That's a fucking far ass trip, right? To me.
Let's. That is. Yeah. That took me almost 40 hours.
Fuck.
That is not. I would not recommend that trip.
Yeah, fuck all the bullshit. 40 hours. It's like that's taking a couple months off your life right there, being in the air like that. Fuck that shit. But
Facts. What is that thing like? Joe Rogan's. That's why he doesn't do like the overseas pay per views, right? Like, what's his beef with flying? Like, I don't want to look into it because obviously I have to fly long distances for a living, and that will just give me extreme paranoia. But what? Like the air, he reckons the air pressure.
who knows with Joe Rogan, right? Like
I don't know.
he has weird concepts or
I don't want to look
altered.
into it. I don't want to
Exact.
look
I,
into it.
I think he just doesn't want to
Now that I
travel.
think about it, I retract my question. I don't want to know.
I think he just doesn't want to travel. He's just like, okay, if it's in the States, the longest flight is probably like, a couple of hours, right? But if I go overseas, I gotta fly for a long distance, and he probably doesn't want to be away from his family. And he's got fuck you money, right? Like when you got fuck you money, you can say fuck you to all your employers
I
and tell
do.
them
I
like this
do.
is what I'll do, and you take it or
Yeah.
leave it. If you leave it, fuck it. I'll just go do my podcast and do my comedy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm getting fucking hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't need that chump change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why
I've got. Yeah. All right. I got. Yeah. All right. Money.
you
Don't
still
quite
have
have fuck. Don't quite have fuck off money. You know what I mean?
you still gotta fly. You got the I still gotta
Yeah.
fly
I'm still
money.
gonna be like. I mean, I don't want to. That's
yeah,
my money. I mean, I don't
yeah,
really want. I don't really feel like it, but all right.
for sure, for sure. So, for all the people wondering about Dan and his next fight, he just gave you some clues.
Ooh, it's
You
a
know what I
good
mean?
fight though.
Is it? Oh man, now it's like now I want to throw guesses
Ooh,
out there and shit, but we'll see. We'll
this is
see.
me.
Is it a
Fired
ranked
up.
guy?
This is me.
Is it a ranked guy? No. Oh, this dude. Now you're doing the Street Fighter like that. Ryu.
Bar, barred up. Nah, it's a good fight. It's an exciting fight. Everyone's going to be I'm very excited about this fight. Cannot tell
Th-
you any more though.
Why you got the screwdriver? Like, is that a clue
Cannot.
as well? Is that a clue?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you read into it what you want to read into it, but
Yeah.
it was just lying around.
Well, you got to protect yourself at all moments, right? So you got to have a weapon around somewhere. Yeah, let's jump into this card, man, from yesterday in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro. Some incredible fights, man. 15 fights, but we're just gonna jump into the main event, man. You got Jamahal Hill. The guy came from the Contender Series, the first guy from the Contender Series that got signed to the UFC to become an undisputed champion. He's not the first one to fight for a title, but he's the first one to win the title. An incredible fight for him. I thought that he went in there and he kind of answered a lot of questions people had about him, right? If he gets to the ground with somebody that's a ground specialist, is he able to get out of those positions? And he got out of all the positions that Glover put him in. Glover took him down a few times. He got up from those positions. He defended a lot of takedowns from Glover. I think a lot of people's analysis of this was like, if Glover could get a hold of him, he's going to be able to take him down and keep him there and end up submitting him or pounding him out. That never happened. They basically stood and banged it out. And in that aspect, Hill did a great job, man, with that left high kick, man. Where did that shit come from? Like, he showed that shit off like out of nowhere. I'm like, where did he go learn from Roman Deckers or some shit?
Nah, he's got some real like subtle stance switches. Like, he just casually does it. We don't really notice it. That's kind of how he knocked out Johnny Walker, was shifting stances like he was in southpaw, and I think from memory, like, he just subtly shifted back to orthodox. So Johnny wasn't expecting the right hook to be there in that power hand, and that's the punch that he caught him with. Kind of the same thing. Like, he would be orthodox, and then he would just shift back into southpaw without really like making like a big stance shift with his shoulders, where he keeps the shoulder but his leg steps back, so you don't really notice him shifting back into southpaw, and then him just whipping that. Like, Glover caught them on the arms, but obviously with the shin, like, it wraps around the hand like a lot quicker. Like, that was the thing for me, and like, Glover just can't get hit with punches, right? Like, his defense on the inside, the way he rolls and catches, like, it's very subtle. It looked like he was getting hit, but yeah, like, the damage was not done with the punches. The damage was done with that kick, that left high kick, continually like wrapping around and hitting you behind the ear, right where your equilibrium lies. So it was, yeah, very, very classy performance. But for me, like, the UFC always puts themselves in win-win situations. They don't like, a lot of people think like, oh man, the UFC is going to be happy if this guy wins, and they're going to be upset if, like, that's, for the UFC, it's always a win-win situation, and this was it. Glover gets his title back, main event in Brazil, crowd goes wild, or they get like a charismatic. They get a charismatic US-based champion, which, as we all know, the pay-per-views only matter in North America. That's the only ones. That's the only ones anyone's getting paid for. Outside of North America, pay-per-views don't count. Congratulations! Like, you're not getting pay-per-view money unless it's done in North America. And so to have a charismatic North American champion would be incredible for the UFC. So they put themselves in a win-win situation. Been win for them. I think also it's a good feather in the cap to have like a Contender Series champion, to have the first Contender Series champion. We know how much of an emphasis the UFC puts on the Contender Series now, and it's continually, it's great for the UFC machine to fast track exciting fighters, and to not only do that now, but to fast track them to a title shot. Now this is how it can be marketed. So it's another feather in the cap for Dana White, his Contender Series, and for the machine that he's created.
Definitely. And the Ultimate Fighter they had a bunch of champions out of that as well. Now the new version of the Ultimate Fighter, which is the Contender Series,
This
they
is
have like
just
their
faster, right? Like
yeah.
this is just like cut the bullshit. We didn't really actually care about the training or these guys hanging out and getting to know
No.
these guys. We didn't really care about it. Like
We don't
let's
give a
just get it.
shit.
Let's just get a few 10-second clips of these guys knocking each other's heads off, and let's fire them into the UFC. Seems a lot more straightforward to me.
Exactly. Like you said, it's the machine, man. Then they've made some tweaks over the years, the last couple of years to the machine, and here we go. We got the first champion. He's a phenomenal guy, man. I thought he like entering the fight, everybody's like questioning his wrestling defense, his jujitsu, like he's just a boxer, right? That has accumulated this highlight reel of knockouts. But in this fight, he got to show a lot of other aspects of his game, and Glover was like the perfect opponent for him. He made Glover look old, because I thought Glover didn't really look old for a fighter in his last couple of fights. But this one, Glover just didn't look like the same Glover we saw in the last fight. Maybe it was the war that he went with, he got into with the Erie that just took a lot out of him. And entering this fight, it just wasn't enough time to recover. There's always that theory, because we never can measure, like, after you get into a war, how long does it take for you to get back to normal so you could go into a fight and take shots and not get the same amount of damage, right? We never know. We will never find out. But people can speculate all day. Man, it doesn't matter. Jamahal Hill went in there and fought 5 rounds tremendously and took out a legend. Would you consider, like, the word legend, right? I don't know if I like to say he's a legend, but would you really consider Glover Teixeira a legend of the sport? Like, is that word legend thrown around too much, Dan? Is it?
I think it's thrown around too much, but not Glover Teixeira. Like I feel like anyone holds that belt and someone calls them a legend. Like that's anyone has dedicated their life to and has a career in mixed martial arts and puts their hands on that title, they are a legend. I feel like, yeah, gets thrown about a bit too much, but not in this instance, without a doubt. Like to be 42 years old, to be fighting for a title or holding a world championship, like you need to tip your hat to them. Name another 42-year-old world champion at fucking anything. So 42-year-olds playing in the NFL or the NBA or the NHL, like nah, professional soccer, professional rugby, professional sport in general, to have someone operating at the highest level, that is a legend to me. That if I can walk at 42, I'll I'll have a smile on my face. Like I'm not gonna be in the shape that man's in at 42.
For sure, man. He retires though, you know what I mean? And I think it's probably the right time. You got your final shot at the title. You probably won't be fighting for a title anytime soon. And then you got, another champion that you could coach. You got other guys up in his stable that he's coaching right now. Balancing that coach's hat with the fighter hat, it's a difficult thing to do. I mean, not many guys can do it, except for James Krause, maybe, and look what happened to him. Anyways, let's move on
That's a whole
other podcast, huh? There's a whole other podcast right there. We could get in deep with that shit.
The bro's saving me money though. To have it now that we're banned from gambling, like I never won a cent, boys. Let's be honest. I'm a terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't take me gambling advice. You're saving me money now.
Yuri, immediately he responds, right? Because Yuri's a lot of people consider him the champion of the division. He just relinquished the title because of injury. Yuri versus Hill. Do you think like they wait for that fight to put that fight together? Would that be the best matchup?
Haven't even thought about it, considering that like Dana White came out and said like that's the worst shoulder injury like anyone has ever seen. Like that fight in general is those are two like incredibly aggressive. Like you can see like Jamal in that house, like his defense is like he's mainly focused on being offensive. Like same to me, like watching Yuri, like defense comes second to these guys, and that's what makes them such exciting champions. Like you see guys, like other guys, you see like let's say like Islam or Volkanovski or my teammate like Israel. Like defense is of a or Sterling. Defense is a high priority to these guys. Moreno, like they get in wars, but defense is first, offense comes second. Like Yuri, Jamahal, these are why they have such potential to be massive stars, because they prioritize offense over defense, which is doesn't really have the recipe for being a champion for the longest period of time, but it sure is exciting while they do hold that belt. Like these are guys that are going to go out there and actually fight. Like these are guys that are going to go out there and put on. Like you can see why they didn't want like Ankalaev is a defense first fighter. To have a defense first Russian-based champion that doesn't speak any English is like, whoa, he's going to sell like 7 pay-per-views. Like you can see why you can see why the UFC jumped right over rematching that fight to have a charismatic North American-based offense-based champion. It just makes sense.
It does definitely make sense, and that's gonna be a wild fucking fight. You know, like you said, offensive first. 2 killers with knockout power, some, you know, everything. They got everything going for them. We'll see, man. We'll see what the UFC does. You know, people are already talking about, you know, Pereira is gonna move up to light heavyweight and avenge Glover's defeat against Hill. That would be a crazy fucking fight as well, man. I could see the UFC putting that together for some reason. You know, just because, you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you just put a fucking screwdriver in the fucking in the fucking engine? Why not? You know what I mean? Fuck it. But we'll see. Let's move on to the co-main event, the fourth fight between Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo. Figueiredo gets his eye beat up. Doctor comes in at the end of the 3rd round, weighs off the fight. Moreno wins. What did you think about that whole sequence of events right there?
Like yeah, 1000%, like legitimate stoppage. Caught him with a legitimate punch. Fist was closed. Knuckle of the thumb catches him below the eye and swallows the eye shut. Like that's as definitive of a finish as I need. You know what I mean? And then for Figueiredo to not come out and dispute that and say, you know, like anything, you know what I mean, to him to say that he's sick of chopping that weight off and he's going to move up to bantamweight. That's that done. That's done and dusted. That's 2 finishes. That's 2 finishes to Moreno. He's the flyweight champion, and we have to tip our hats. And I'm excited for him to move that on. And that looks like, from the conversation that was had after, Pantoja will be the next guy in line for the flyweight title, which is another exciting matchup. So it's things keep moving in that. I really don't want to see 5 fights with the same people. we just slide that one in there. Yeah. I'm glad he's moving up to bantamweight, because 5 fights with it, watching too many hours of the same people.
Yeah, it's like watching the same fight 5 times. Pantoja, man, he has 2 wins over Moreno. He has a finish. He choked him out in the first fight and a decision win in the second fight. It makes it interesting, and Pantoja deserves it. You know, like he's beaten like 3 straight contenders in a division. I thought he was supposed to get the title fight already, and hopefully he does get it, because you never know with the UFC. It's not set in stone until you get the contract signed and you weigh in, right? So we'll see what that.
Yeah, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes in like the negotiation room. Guys that are easy to negotiate with, guys that are difficult to negotiate with. Like, so yeah, as you say, but if you really want the fight done, you'll get that fight done.
For sure. And what about the video of Moreno running to the backstage, smiling with people throwing, I don't even know, I think they were throwing beer at him and popcorn and all that stuff. I thought it was funny that he was smiling, like he just got away, like it's a kid that
Well,
like
no
stole some
shit, bro.
candy.
Like you, like if I'm things. The game has done changed. If I lose that fight and you're throwing shit at me, I'm going in the crowd. Like I remember, I remember, like I lost a fight walking back, and someone said something to me, and I think it was after the Islam fight, and I was walking back to the crowd, and I'm walking. Obviously, like you lose, so you head down. Someone says something cheeky, and I just turn and I see something, and I'm thinking I'm just gonna hit the first, the first guy. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm like you're in a like your world has been shattered in that moment. You think for that like moment in time, you're thinking like I really don't care about what happens next. And I remember my coach Doug kind of he knew what I was about to do. Like I turned and I locked eyes with this cover, and I knew that this is not the cover that said it anyway. But I thought, well, someone's getting hit, and I loaded up to hit him, and then I just remember like Dougie locking my arms up and just being like, no, we'll keep it moving, we'll keep it. So, but that obviously entirely changes.
Yeah.
When you win the contest, you know what I mean? You throw a beer, I'm gonna lick it off my face. Like let's I could not give a shit. I've got a world title strapped around my waist. Like that's yeah, the game definitely changes from a win to a loss. I am of the opinion that you buy your ticket, you can yell and scream and boo and say whatever you want to say. You don't have to stay respectful, but throwing things at people like that, yeah, it's different when it happens in like maybe it's different when it happens like in like North America or somewhere. If it's in Las Vegas, which is like a centralized location, and you have those two guys, obviously there's going to be a lot of Mexican fans. Obviously, there's going to be like a lot of Brazilian fans. So maybe the hesitancy to cross that line is there a little more compared with like being in Brazil. Everyone's a Brazilian fan. Like obviously Mexican fans are going to be a bit more reluctant to travel down in Brazil and support their guy. Like that changes it like a little bit, but yeah. Oh man, I've seen it in New Zealand after Jamie Tahuna lost his main event here in Victor Arena against Nate Marquardt. Coming back, I remember it because I went out and I sat cage side to watch this fight. He lost. He got armbarred in the first round. He walked back and people were throwing beer at him. People and this is our own guy. This is a New Zealand representative walking back to the ring, and I remember the New Zealand fans throwing beer at their own fighter, and that sat with me for yeah, that's always like stuck with me. Like fuck, you got to be out there on your own. You know what I mean? Like you have to do it for yourself. Like obviously, I love putting on a show for the fans and representing my hometown, but yeah, it's got to be something bigger than putting on a show. You know what I mean? Because when it's all said and done, like these people don't really, you know what I mean? Like
Ain't that
they
about a
don't.
bitch? Like
Ain't that about? I remember sitting there watching, and I thought, like Jamie Tahuna is like to me, it was an absolute hero. This is the first New Zealand fighter to represent us in the UFC. I remember he was kicking pads, warming up, broke his toe, warming up for that fight. Kicked the pad holder's elbow, walked out there. He broke his foot, warming up for that fight. Walked out still with a broken foot, put on a show, and this is how you want to treat him. That's always something. So even main eventing, like you know what's on the line because like the the crowd is fickle. They turn they turn very quickly.
Yeah. People get brave from the stands, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, I've seen it myself, you know, not even just in fighting, but in like other sports. People fucking get brave.
Life's easy in the peanut gallery, bro.
Exactly. Life's easy on the couch, you know what I mean? That's basically where they're at. Just like in the stands. They're sitting on the couch right there trying to fucking, yeah. People are reckless, you know. Sometimes people need to get smacked in the mouth, you know. It happens, right? It happens. Remember that that NBA game? This was like years back when it was like I think it was in Detroit or something, and the fans started throwing shit at the basketball players, and they just had a complete brawl. Like, they beat the shit out of a bunch of fans.
Yeah,
like,
I do remember that.
Remember that?
Yeah. There's like a Netflix on it. I watched.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's a cold reminder right there. That
what was the one? Matt Brown in Brazil when he was walking out. Who was he fighting?
Oh, yeah.
Matt Brown's walking out. Guy says something to him. He turns and he just decked us. He just popped the motherfucker straight in the mouth. He hit him, no repercussions. You know how much I love that? That he didn't get in any trouble for that. Like that is cool.
Yeah, you shouldn't
you should know who you're talking to. You know what I mean? I might yell some shit at some guys. I might yell some shit at Colby Covington. I know he ain't gonna swing on me. I ain't gonna yell. I ain't gonna yell shit at Matt. I'm gonna leave Matt Brown. No. I'm gonna keep it country mile away. Or if I yell shit at Matt Brown, I'm gonna get some defense going. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Pick your battles, my guy.
Yeah, the guy said it. Matt Brown turns at him and he just goes, shit.
That's so funny. Pick your battles, my guy. Pick your battles.
It's Eric Silva, and then I think it was the Eric Silva fight, and then he whooped his ass anyway. Oh, it's hot here in New Zealand.
Damn, it's summer over there, huh?
We cooking. I'm cooking, bro.
Damn, fuck. I wish it was summer over here. Fucking bullshit. Yeah, so Brandon Moreno, man. I guess Pantoja's the next fight. Then you got Figueiredo already. I think his mind was already at 135. I don't even know if he wanted to even stay there, even if he won the fight. So 135 is a crazy division, and you put Figueiredo in there, who's a gun as well. You know what I mean? Like, he goes in there to finish fights. Like, he's one of those guys you just mentioned who's offensive first. Like, he's jumping for the ghillie. He's throwing from the hip. Like, there's a lot of exciting matchups at 135.
I think he's already booked. Oh, I know he's booked. But I'd like to see him fight. I'd like to see Garbrandt fight Figueiredo.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think those two incredibly offensive fighters. Like, someone's getting knocked out. Yeah. Someone's gonna make a name for themselves. You know what I mean? Like, that's a good fight. Like, Garbrandt's just been down at flyweight, back at bantamweight. Like it's a good fight. Maybe he's not. He might not be ranked or anything like that. But that's a big name. Those are two big name fights.
I like the fight against Dominic Cruz. I would like to see him fight Dominic Cruz. Like, because Dominic Cruz, he's a volume guy, you know what I mean? But he's offensive as well, and he'll mix it up. I think it's a solid fight for both guys. But yeah, Garbrandt, if you're looking at pure violence and pure entertainment, that's the fight right there, without a fucking doubt. Him and Garbrandt. The next one, man, Gilbert Burns. Fuck, man, Gilbert Burns just goes in there and he's just like, I'll fucking fight anybody. Why can't you guys give me a fucking fight? The dudes at the top don't want to fight me, so let me go down the line and fight Neil Magny, who's a tough puzzle for anybody. Just his style and the body frame that he has. And Gilbert did exactly what I thought he was going to do in this fight. I thought he was going to play with him, like, not play with him, but I thought he was going to stand on the feet and eventually try to take it to the ground. Because we've seen guys in the past that fought Neil Magny that beat him do the same exact thing. Like, RDA did the same thing. He kind of, found his distance and then took him down and submitted him. Gilbert did the same thing and made quick work. Yeah, I don't know. I think Gilbert is still getting better in my eyes. I think, like, he's found the division that he's supposed to fight at, and he's having success, and all that experience that he's had right at the top it's starting to pay off now. What do you see?
Well, of course he's getting better because he's always active. Like, this is Like even like he's just always been active. You can go and look at his career. Like the guy doesn't pull out. Like the guy will fight absolutely anyone. Short notice, this notice, that notice, ranked higher, ranked lower. Like this is why he has made such a name for himself. Is he's consistently in the gym. He's consistently inside the octagon. So he's always going to be improving and getting better. Like it just comes down to consistency. Is the thing that's going to get you over the line. Like if you're always there and you're always improving and you're always, Rolling Stone carries no moss. Like this guy is never out of shape. This guy is never unfit. Like he's built a repertoire for just longevity in himself.
He just steps up, man. The guy steps up and he knows what he wants in his career, and he just goes for it. There's guys that kind of step back and try to play the strategic route a little bit, but Gilbert's just like, I want this, and if I got to do this, and this to do it, fuck it, I'm gonna take my chances. And he takes his chances, man, and goes out there and wins fights. And now he's back in a good ass position to where he lines himself up, maybe one fight away from another title shot, depending on who's the champion. He calls out Colby Covington. Of course, I love that fight. You know what I mean? Who doesn't love that fight? People are talking about the Ultimate Fighter with what about the Ultimate Fighter? Is it dead, or would you like to see Burns and Covington in an Ultimate Fighter?
I haven't watched Ultimate Fighter for about 10 years, bro.
10 years. You stopped watching it when you get to the UFC?
I saw his Kai. I saw a couple of episodes of Kai's on. Oh no, Volk did a couple of episodes of Volk's on, but it ain't the same. You know what I mean? Like they what's it on now?
I think it's on ESPN.
It ain't gonna be the same as what was it on Spike? It was on Spike back in the day.
They had freedom.
Chris Leben just getting wrecked every night, smashing shit, fighting people. You got Nate Diaz slapping people. You got guys armbarring each other and getting spiked into the concrete. Take it off ESPN.
That's all the fighter we want, right? We want the fucking.
That's what I watch it for. I remember watching that back in the day and going, "Oh shit!" I'd be like, now they're like super controlled professional athletes. I don't want to watch that shit. I want to watch a house full of pissheads fight each other every night.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I haven't watched really the Ultimate Fighter too much. I mean, my guy Frank was on with Volk, so of course I had to watch a couple of those, but not I had to, but I wanted to. But yeah, it's like you're right. It is kind of controlled. It's not like it was back in the day. Like when the best season to me was
like the sport has obviously changed. Like back in the day, you know what I mean? Like there was no money in it. Like it was like a hobby. You know what I mean? Like these guys are coming in there, had a couple fights, but they just work normal jobs and have a fight every now and then. They're not, because we weren't professional athletes back then. We were just the guys that liked having a fight more than anyone else. Like we weren't going to be like the sanest group of people walking around. But now it's like obviously evolved. It's obviously evolved into a professional sport. So you're getting these young kids that have been amateurs since they were 16. So then they get like 30. They had 45 fights, 50 fights, and they've been professional athletes since they were 15, 16 years old. Like it's obviously not the same thing as Chris Leben and Chuck Liddell coaching you once a day and then just getting the weekend off to drink beers, and it's not
go get in a bar fight and then come back and train again. Those days are gone, right? Like, remember the days? I don't know if you remember the days, but I'm pretty sure there was days of like guys that would train all week and then they had to test it out somewhere. So they would go to the local bar to see if someone was willing to fight them, and then they would go fight them in the parking lot.
Even go back, like obviously, like early 1 through 20 UFC, like that was just like Cowboys, you know what I mean? Like that. So, but then even after 20, when guys are figuring it out, like you watch the interviews and they're like, yeah, no, it's been a real tough 3-week training camp. Like 3 weeks. Like, what are you talking about? 3-week training camp? Yeah, no, I've done a full 4-week training camp for this fight. It's like a 4-week training. Like now, it's a 14, 12. It's got to be 12 or guys like Gagey are saying, oh, no, I got to have 12 weeks or I'm not taking the fight. Like, dude, it's not the same thing as getting off the couch 3 weeks before the fight and kind of getting in shape.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Back then it was like a full 4-week. I had a lot of time to prepare for this one. You know what I mean? I had 4 weeks.
I'm good to
now
go.
It's like short notice is 4 weeks. People are like, yeah, it's super short notice. He didn't have enough time to get ready. You know what I mean? Back then it was like that was the opposite situation. Yeah, it's a trip, man. It's a trip. My favorite season and I could still watch it again is the Rampage and Rashad Evans. Like when they had the beef and then they put them in the Ultimate Fighter together and they would just get in their faces.
Tearing that door to threads like that.
And you're like,
my favorite. It's one of
that's
my
not
favorite
a real
moments.
Place. When you saw the door, you're like, that's not a real place.
Yeah, I was
that's
is that a real door? Did they make this thing out of paper mache? Is this a setup?
For real. Yeah, man. Gilbert Burns. I think that's the fight. I think he deserves Covington if Covington's ready to come back. Everybody's trying to find a matchup for Hamzat, but whatever. I like the Burns Covington matchup a lot better. I think those guys will put on a crazy fight. Jessica Andrade, what an animal! Like she just beat the shit out of Lauren Murphy for 15 minutes. It was like Lauren Murphy is tough as fuck, right? But being tough is not always the best thing. And in this situation, man, Andrade was just like teeing off on Lauren Murphy, and people are screaming, yelling.
Yeah, I feel like if that was boxing, that would have been stopped. Yeah. Probably after the first round, or pretty close after that. Like professional boxing's obviously been around like a lot longer, so you can see there is like the outcome that it has on fighters. Like I believe, and I feel like most of like the professional boxing, like once it stops becoming a sporting endeavor and a sporting contest, they kind of just stop the fight. Like you'll see that a lot of professional boxing, like one guy is just getting outclassed and hasn't landed shots for a while. You'll see a referee step in and just say like that's enough. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to let this cross the line. And I kind of feel the same. I feel like we're being paid for a sporting endeavor. And no boundary has been set by, like no clear line has been set by coaches or commissions or referees or even the doctors that are being employed. Like no one's putting their hands up, and they all kind of just stare at each other and just be like, you do it. Like you do it. Like everyone's pretty hands off and no one's set like a clear boundary. I feel like that'll come down to like the commission over anything. Like once a fight is crossing the line of being a sporting endeavor, and now it's like that fight went into the part where it was just like gratifying people's like 90
thirst
80
for blood.
80 or 90% of people like just watch NASCAR for the car crashes. They just watch the UFC to see someone get knocked out or to just witness something like that's grotesque. You know what I mean? Like something like, oh man, I haven't seen anything like that before. That was, look at her face. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like once it crosses the line into just kind of like a sideshow or a freak show, then someone needs to put their hand up and say like, I've seen enough. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that'll come down to the, like, we need to decide who that's going to be. because everyone kind of gets criticized, like not really the doctors, because we don't even know who the fuck they are. It's got to be either the referees or it can't. I don't think it can be the. I don't think it can be the corner because of like the personal repercussions that'll come from that.
Yeah.
Whereas fighters will just be like, "Oh, I'm not working with that guy again. He stopped my. I'm changing gyms." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's got to be the referees because they're controlled by like the commission. They're not directly employed by the UFC. So I feel like it might even have to come down to the referees who are protected by the commissions to actually step in, just like the referees in boxing are the ones that put their hands up, and we know that this guy's the one that's going to be stop the fight. And when the fights get stopped, like it's actually there's blowback from the fans, but you will see that there won't be any blowback from like the coaches. There won't actually be any, like they'll obviously the fighter will be like, man, but you can't leave it to the fighter. And that's where UFC and that's where MMA is like currently at, where it's like, oh no, look, do you want to keep fighting? And the fighter's like, yeah, of course I want to keep. Like, of course you can't, you can't leave it in the fighter's hands. You need to take it out of his hands, and that needs to be the referee. And that line needs to be drawn at once it stops being an athletic endeavor, and it just moves into they might land a punch or they might, like we don't need like once it becomes like a 1 in 100, then just call it. You know what I mean? Like we want to see this person have like a successful life. And this is like coming from me, right? Like I've been in some of the dumbest shit you'll ever like. I will not, you know what I mean? But we get paid for athletic endeavors. We don't get paid. We don't get paid to go out there. Like you can't put a price on stepping inside the octagon and putting your life and you be willing to die. I am. Every time I step in there, I'm willing to die to win. You know what I mean? But that aspect needs to be taken away, or we will see guys starting to suffer some kind of long-term effects.
You make a great point about corners, because everybody wants, like, fans and social media will come out and say, like, it's the corner's responsible to stop the fight, and to a certain degree, yes, but then there's these repercussions that can happen if they do step in and stop the fight. Like you said, personal repercussions.
Big repercussions like this, like the fighter's like not gonna talk to the coach anymore. Like he's just gonna change gym. You know what I mean? Like
the trust is
like
gone, right?
You're for sure your trust is gone. Like it's gotta be the referees. Like I feel like the doctors are employed by the UFC.
Yeah.
So their priority is to keep them, like if doctors wave off too many fights, they lose their job. Like that's just who it is. Like, do you name one doctor in the UFC?
Who gives a fuck? I don't know, man.
Don't have a fucking clue what any of their names are.
No.
You know what I mean? Like so to say that these monkeys that are torturing you in the eye are going to be the ones that are going to stop the fight, they're not. They're employed by the UFC. Their job is their fans. It's their job to keep the fight going as long as possible. It's got to be the referees. There's too much personal repercussion for coaches and corners. These are like, how many times has Dana White said at the press conference, like, man, I can't, it's a shit decision. Oh man, these judges are protected by the commission. Well, the referees are protected by the commissions as well. The UFC doesn't hire the referees, the commissions hire the referees and put them inside the octagon. So these guys are essentially untouchable to the UFC. Like, why are they the ones not stopping the fights? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You see it happen in certain instances, and then you see it not happen in certain instances, which is like
very, very rarely. Like name one fight you've seen, like.
Well, somebody in the comments was talking about the main event. You know what I mean? At one point, I think, I don't know if maybe it was the third or fourth round where Jamahal Hill was just raining down fucking ground and pound, just heavy, just landing shit.
If that was like if that similar thing was happening in boxing, the fight would have got stopped. The main event would have got stopped. The main event would have got stopped, and the Lauren Murphy fight would have been stopped. Like both of those fights, the ref just says, "I've seen enough. Like this is not. This is no longer sport." Like that is the line. That is the line for boxing referees, where they're watching a fight and they like. But that's the thing. You take it like you're gonna obviously lose like that part of it. That's like the Czech Congo Pat Barry. You know what I mean? Like you're never gonna have that.
No.
You're never gonna have that ever again. And that's like that aspect of it is the part that fight fans are like gripping to with for dear life, because they're just like I don't care. They're like, I want to see Czech Congo Pat Barry. Like, guys, oh, he's knocked. Oh, like, you know what I mean? Like life-changing things. But you're doing it at the expense. It's a pretty big expense. And boxing's been around long enough that you see what the actual expense is. You see these world champions that can't eat their cereal in the morning. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It ain't cricket.
Yeah, you start to see it now, especially in boxing. You're right. The reason why this is now considered a sport is there's certain facets right here, like the referee. You know, the referee is the reason why it's a sport. The judges is the reason why it's a sport. The commission is the reasons why it's a sport. So to put the fighter's health first, you're right. The referee is the one that has 100% control. 100%. That's why he's there. He's the one to keep the chaos, you know, controlled, right?
And the point it's at now is like, I don't know what they're being told, but the referees for like now are like, oh, they're coherent. They can. I've had fingers put on my fucking face, said the wrong number, and they let the fight continue. Like I didn't actually say I couldn't see, and I took a guess, and I went back and watched the fight and had 3, and I was like 2, and the ref goes, yeah, all right. He was like, fuck it, close enough. Like this is the test that we have now. Like how many fingers am I holding up? And you go 1, and he goes, yeah, that's fucking close. Like, keep going. Like, can you walk? And you're like, not really. And they're just like, oh well, keep it going. Like that is not a sporting endeavor. That's we're just watching car crashes at this point.
I wish that because you know in the like I don't think there's ever been an instance where a doctor stopped a fight and then backstage in the post fight and all that, people are blaming the doctor for stopping the fight. I don't think it's ever happened. Like the doctor
because they let it go to such a point now. Like that's how little impact the ringside doctor in MMA has on the fight. That when they do stop fights, we go like, yeah, obviously half of his face was hanging off. Like we can't, you can't let that continue. That's the Let's just scrap the doctor from the conversation. The doctor is not there. The doctor is not there to protect the fighter. The doctor is not there to stop the fights. Let's just get that abundantly clear.
Yeah, I think referees should take more responsibility to stop fights. They're in control. You know what I mean? Of course, there's going to be some backlash from fans, but who gives a fuck about the fans? You know what I mean? Like the fans don't pay your bills. You know, the fans don't decide if you get jobs or not. You know what I mean? Your job is to referee properly and protect the fighters. So I don't know. Moving forward, hopefully things will change with this, because I understand why coaches don't step in, because a lot of the times they have an agreement with the fighter. The fighter will tell the coaches, like, you know what I mean, don't ever stop.
There can be like, there can be a lot of like, they know the fighter. They know the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there needs to be, like the referee doesn't. They don't know me. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? They don't.
Yeah.
They don't know my family situation. They don't know that I'm late. Like they don't know a fighter's late on his mortgage payments.
Nah.
They don't know that. You know, they don't have this kind of information. A coach does.
Yeah.
A coach knows. Oh shit! If he doesn't
He's
make
in
this
debt.
mortgage payment, yeah, they're gonna repossess his house.
Yeah.
So he's got a 1% chance of winning. Fuck, I'm gonna have to let this fight go
Right.
because he's got 1% chance of winning. The referee doesn't know that. He's impartial. You're taking an impartial person, impervious from backlash from the UFC, and they're not responsible. I don't know why they are they after running this through, they should be solely responsible for stopping fights. I feel like the you know the meme where the Spider-Man's like pointing at each other and they're just like, you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it. Fuck that. Coaches too they're not impartial enough to make the decision. Doctors are not impartial because they're employed directly by the UFC. The referees. They should be held solely responsible for how severely a fighter is injured.
Man, yeah, it's a conversation I think a lot of people should have, man, about, because it comes up every once in a while when we see fights like that. But outside of that, Jessica Andrade, I'm a fan of hers, man. I think she's incredible. She has wins in 4 different weight divisions. Like
Crazy.
who does that? Even in this sport that we have now, there's not many people that have 4 wins in 4 different weight divisions and has become a champion in one of them and fought for titles in 2 of them, which is insane to me, man. Anytime she fights, I'm down to watch her fight. Go check out our OnlyFans if you are a OnlyFans subscriber. I've seen some photos.
I've seen it. I've seen it. Who are you setting up for failure, my friend? Shit the fucking bed. Are you serious?
I'm just fucking.
Why did you shout that out? You see
I just whenever I think of her as well, I just think of that photo I saw in some of the chats.
I seen some things. You know what I seen some things that I wish I could unsee. That's all I'm saying.
So if you want to see the things
the bro's setting you up, bro. The bro's setting you up.
I'm just saying,
you ain't getting me like that.
Everybody has different tastes. You know what I mean? Go see if you'd like that taste. I'm just saying, like, just go. Like, for fighting wise, hey, I'm down to watch her fight. She's an animal.
Whatever you're into.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Whatever floats
Hangman
your boat.
Hangman doesn't judge. Let's just put it that way.
Hey, when are we gonna see the Hangman's OnlyFans? Like, I'm all jokes aside, OnlyFans is not for just like nude photos and shit. Like, OnlyFans is for OnlyFans. Like, your fans can come and see shit. They pay monthly.
I don't know. I just know from because Israel had OnlyFans. He was getting good money, but then because it's known as a porno thing, a lot of other sponsors were like, "Whoa, we don't like him being associated with a porno thing." You know what I mean? So you're gonna lose a lot of other sponsorships. So I don't know. If it came to the point where that would overshadow that, then I think it changes a little bit. But if you're going to get more money from legitimate sponsors than running an OnlyFans page,
everybody's in a different situation. So, you know what I mean? If you're in Izzy's, of course you're not going to get the OnlyFans. But if you're in my situation, if dudes are going to watch, not dudes, but if chicks want
get your dick out.
Get the hammer out, you know what I mean?
Get the hammer out, my man. Let's go.
Nail some shit right there, boy. Shogun. We go from that to Shogun. Shogun retires. Man, Shogun, what can you say about Shogun? That's a bad way to retire. That we just saw that happen to Frankie Edgar as well. You know what I mean?
Fuck it, ain't the sport is not sunshine and rainbows, bro. We've got one guy that went out. we got one guy that went out with and under not being slept. You know what I mean? It's a unicorn in our game. You know what I mean? Like this is just I remember just watching that fight, and I was like, please, for the love of fuck, just don't get knocked out in the first round. And they got knocked out in the first round, and as soon as that first punch landed, I just walked off. And then the post-fight dance was fucking stupid as.
Yeah, it's like a lot of that wasn't
Like, oh, shot in the ear. It's like you still told him to suck your dick. Like that's what.
That's Shogun.
You know what I mean? That's
Shogun.
Shogun. You're gonna tell Shogun to suck your dick. Like are you fucking serious?
Just the knockout over Shogun, no matter which version of Shogun you knock out,
like
is legit.
Okay, you've already fucking annoyed me.
Yeah.
Knocking out Shogun, like you've already pissed me off. And then the dancing.
Yeah, the dancing
I'm never gonna
was
speak
bad
to that man ever again.
That was a terrible dance.
He goes, no, I shot the gun in the air. It's like, get fucked.
You
know what I mean?
Gun. You don't have a gun.
Get fucked.
Fucking. Anyways, he could have turned that into something.
He almost got knocked out too. Fuck, Shogun almost had him too.
Yeah. Fuck. Well, he could have turned that into something that would have got people on his side, because he's pretty much an unknown in the UFC, right?
All you had to do was just go. All this guy had to do was go, when it came to his speech, just go, man, thank you for the opportunity. Shogun's such a legend. I'm going to step aside and let him have the microphone.
Yeah.
That's all he had to do. And I would have learned the guy's name and gone, wow, that's like a respectful thing to do. It's obviously like a legend of the sport's final moment inside the octagon. I want to hear what he has to say. All he had to do was step aside and hand the microphone to Shogun. Like he'd already made a name for himself.
Yeah.
Fumbled.
It sucked, man, to watch that, because you knew it was coming almost. Like once the fight started and you saw Shogun plodding forward, you're like, fuck, this could be happening, right? And what can you do, man? Like you said,
but you know, Shogun, like it would have been the same with Frankie. If they would have done that to the other guy, they wouldn't have retired. Like,
yeah.
You can take it to the bank. Like, say Frankie knocks him out, say Shogun catches him, Shogun would have got on the microphone and gone, I ain't fucking leaving. I'm not fucking leaving.
Yeah. It's that feeling, right? It's that feeling that you get after the victory that keeps him going. And Shogun, man, outlasted so many other fighters.
It's like too. It's that obviously like that feeling, that rush, that high, that adrenaline, the money. Like you put all of those things together. Those are some pretty, like, money and adrenaline, and excitement and thrill. That's a combination of drugs that is like that's a crazy combination of drugs, thrill, adrenaline, and money. Those are three of the strongest drugs in the world, all combined into one. And you get that moment every time you get your hand raised, and it's like an incredibly difficult thing to walk away from.
It's like the gamblers. The gamblers are the same thing. It's like you get that adrenaline when you hit that fucking ticket, and then you go cash it out, and you get that money. You know what I mean? Like
they say that they like super high stake addicted gamblers. And I've like kind of looked into it. Like whether they win or whether they lose, like they get an incredible, like the rush is there and it's kind of the same in fighting. And that's why I've looked into it, because you can kind of relate. Like whether you win and you get that high, or whether you lose, like even the loss, like the rush of emotion, and like it's overwhelming, and it's like the opposite of those. It's like agony and and depression, and like they say that about like high stake addicted gamblers. Like whether they like it's the same rush, like whether like you get an overwhelming rush, whether you win or whether you lose, it just goes left or it goes right, but it's still as addictive, and it's still a rush. Like it's quite a thing.
Yeah, I don't, man, it's got to be incredible. But for Shogun, that was just terrible to go out as. But man, they'll probably end up putting him in the Hall of Fame and doing all of that good stuff for him, and he'll live.
Please.
Yeah, he'll live in history, man. The guy fought in Pride. The guy fought in the UFC and became champion in both. Not many dudes out there that have accomplished that feat. So respect to Shogun and yeah, man. Well, hopefully, maybe he has kids. Maybe we'll see one of his kids come up. I doubt it, but I'm just saying, like right now, like I think in the NBA, there's like a gang of like former NBA players that have their sons in the NBA right now. There's like a list of like 10 or 15 or some crazy shit like that. I'm like, damn, that's pretty insane. Have you ever had that in the UFC? Have you ever had a father and son duo ever?
I don't know. The sport's only like, even the UFC's only 30 years old. You know what I mean? Like, even if you had him at 18, he's only gonna be 12. You know what I mean?
True.
So give it like a few more generations. But yeah, speaking for myself, like no chance. No chance my no chance my kids are ever strapping on them gloves, bro. Like I'm gonna take them to tennis, golf, singing and dancing. Like if they don't want to do any of those four things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's easier ways to make money than this. This is a caveman sport. This is for stupid people.
Let's talk about some stuff that's going on, man, in the UFC or just in MMA in general. Jon Jones is coming back, man, and he's gonna fight Cyril Gane. But before we get to that, let's talk about Francis Ngannou, right? Like, what a guy! The guy just said, "Fuck you, fuck everybody. I'm gonna do my shit, and I'm gonna go and venture out into the fucking space of fucking, I don't even know what's out there that's being offered to him, right? But he didn't sign with the UFC. Now he's gonna go out there and see what he can find out there. What do you think? Do you think that this is gonna be something that kind of allows? I don't know. We talked about something similar to this in the past, right? About like fighters like Nate Diaz when he left, right? When Nate Diaz left, we talked about it, and nothing has happened to Nate Diaz since then. Right, he hasn't signed a fight, nothing. But do you feel like it's different for Francis Ngannou?
I feel like if he can pull it off, that'll be incredible. It's not something that hasn't been done before. I think if we look back at history, like Randy Couture has done it before. Tim Silva left the UFC. I don't know if he just lost the title or he left the UFC with the title. And then his first fight, because he wanted to test himself against Fedor Emelianenko, and he was beaten incredibly badly on Affliction, I believe. I remember watching that fight and getting his head absolutely caved in, and so it can pay off if it pays off. You know what I mean? Like those two guys rolled the dice, and it didn't go the way that they wanted it to go. I respect Francis for standing by his principles and for truly standing up for what he believes in. That's like very cool to see. But yeah, like obviously if he gets paid for his next fights, obviously he's got the Tyson Fury. Like even I feel like Jake Paul will be a good fight for Francis. I feel like that's a win-win fight for. Like I'd say Francis like probably wins that fight, just being like so much bigger than him. But like it's a win-win fight like for Jake Paul as well. Like he's the better boxer, I think. yeah, like there's some big opportunities. I hope it all goes well for him. Like it's not honestly, it's actually not rocket science. Like what needs to be done. Like you look at any other professional sport that's been around for a long period of time. Like what slides the scale into the athlete's favor is a union. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's like it's actually not rocket science. We all know what to do, but like the power lies that we're like individual contractors. So like I am not like that's the thing about Francis. Like he said, like I am gonna stand for like the bigger principle, whereas 99.99% of fighters are just gonna go like, yeah, all right. And then the UFC goes, bro, I'll give you $10 million if you come back and fight this guy. I tell you right now, I'm going to say, fuck that, because I care about my friends. I care about my family. I care about my kids. And I want to see, like, that's like fighting, especially, is like an incredibly selfish sport. So you're kind of like used to making these, you kind of get used to making these selfish decisions. Like, nah, I have to leave this gym and go here because I need to get better if I want to make it to the next. So you've continually made like selfish decisions your whole career to progress it. But yeah, it's actually not rocket science. Like what actually needs to happen to get some kind of change. It's just the collective is not ready to make the shift. It's not. Yeah.
Well,
it's
it's
not a
clear as
secret.
day. Yeah, it's clear as day.
Clear as day.
It's clear as day.
Clear as day. And we're all going like this. We're all going like this.
Yeah. Yeah. How many fingers am I holding up? You know what I mean? 2. You know, it's yeah, like you're right. It's as a collective. If it's not a collective, then it means
you're not, and I'll tell you right now, you're not gonna get the collective right now because the UFC has the power, the UFC has the control, and like yeah, people say, oh, why don't you just you should just stand up and say fuck the like, bro, okay, you're a plumber. I want you to text message your boss right now and tell him to fuck himself. You want to double your pay and say, oh, that's not the same. It's the same thing, bro. Like I like this is my job. I mean, this is how I make a living. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna tell my boss to go fuck himself. Like that would be stupid.
Yeah, and with your job, it's different because a plumber, he just goes and tells like his other plumbers and his the people around him. But in your job, you're telling the whole fucking world to fuck off.
You're telling the whole world, and it's like the plumber tells his boss to go fuck himself. Like, what's he gonna get? Like a few crummy jobs, and then maybe let go in a couple of months. Like a cage fighter is gonna get like the hardest guys on short notice. He's gonna get like you're gonna get like fucked up really bad and then fired. Like that's
yeah. Well, you know what they said about Tito Ortiz, right? Dana, he kind of, this is just speculation, right? This is just a theory but Dana kept him around even though he didn't like him, just to give him the worst matchups so he could get his ass beat. And that's why he got a 1-7 record. Right, just kept him around forever.
Like this is the wake up. This is the real world. Everyone wants to win. You know.
Well, they're looking at his options and they're like, to me, if Jake Paul signs to fight Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul has some of the that meme of the South Park, the dude carrying his nuts in a wheelbarrow. Jake Paul is like that. Like if he signs to fight,
that's why I say that's like a win-win. That's like a win-win fight for Jake Paul. You know what I mean? Like he gets knocked out in the first round, we go, oh fuck. Well, that was Francis Ngannou. You know what I mean? Like respect for even getting in there. Like I don't think it's I don't think that he's gonna like lose any kind of I think there's respect for even getting in there with a guy like Francis Ngannou.
Oh, for sure.
A guy like Jake Paul. Like it's
man.
And if he beats him, like poor, that's
fuck. And like then we're living in some fucking Black Mirror episode that just nothing makes sense in our life. If Jake Paul goes there and knocks out Francis Ngannou.
It's a fight, bro. It's a fight. Like at the end of the day, any man can win.
For sure, for sure. Well, they were talking about Bellator would be a good spot because Bellator has that deal with Showtime, and then Showtime has Showtime Boxing, and it just seems like Francis wants to get into the boxing, right? So it's like, why not sign with a promotion that's going to allow you to box? And that could be something, what I mean? Showtime could, add something to the contract and give him the money that he wants and give him health insurance and all that good stuff that he's asking for. And if they do, man, that's great for him, right? That's great for him if he gets the money he deserves, and then he still gets to fight MMA. And Bellator, gets their man. PFL is there with their special like pay-per-view contract deals with certain fighters. I think Jake Paul signed with PFL. Oh, he did, like in some weird
like
aspect.
it's funny. It's not. But was he asking like in the contract? Was that Francis asking for health insurance like for himself, or like was he asking for health insurance for like the full?
I'm thinking himself. I don't know. Why would you negotiate for everybody?
Like exactly. But it sets like a crazy precedent. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. If I'm the say we switch hats and I know I'm wearing Dana White's hat, you ask me for health insurance, get fucked, bro. I can't get what do you call it? Like I can't get medical insurance in New Zealand. They did it. I did it through the bank. They wanted me to pay $700 a week.
Fuck.
In health to get private health insurance. Like this is not. If you want to live a long, healthy life, like this is get a real job, brother. Like this is not. This is not the one. You know what I mean? Like so, if I'm wearing Dana White's hat and you come to me and you go, "Hey," like the bank won't even give me health insurance. You know what I mean? Yeah. So is the UFC dumber than the bank? Like, no, the UFC is not dumber than the bank. Like, so you can't you have to look at the whole thing, with a bit of perspective.
When I was training to like last year, right, and I was looking at insurance as well, just in case, you know what I mean, just in case I get hurt or something, and it did happen. Like they were telling me, like, don't ever tell them you're training to fight. Don't ever say that to anybody. And I was like, why? And it's like, they're not going to insure you for anything, you stupid motherfucker. Right. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. But
I used to do that till the point where you can't hide it anymore. Like, to the point where you're like, no, I'm pretty sure you go into the A&E and they're like, I'm pretty sure you're Dan Hooker. Like, I'm pretty sure that you do this.
You're that Dan Hooker, right?
Pretty sure you walked in here with a cut. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that happened from having a fight.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, it's pretty wild. But I guess in the comments they're saying that that Ngannou was trying to negotiate for all fighters to get.
Oh yeah, mate. I'm wearing Dana White's hat. Get fucked, bro. No chance.
Yeah, Dana ain't playing that bullshit.
No chance. Like, do you know how much that would cost? Do you know? Oh. Do you have any idea how much health insurance for a bunch of fucking concussed old?
It's insane.
Brother, it's insane. Yeah. That's like $100 million. Like that's not small potatoes, my friend.
Yeah, just insurance would fucking just take a huge chunk out of whatever the UFC is making, right? It's gonna take a while to get all of that situated. But like you said, Dan, if there's no collective,
not rocket
science. Yeah, it's
not like rocket science. What is everyone else doing? Oh, should we do that? Nah. It's like fuck. All right, then.
Like if Francis Ngannou goes
no one's to put their hand up and be like the first guy to get fired. You know what I mean? Like,
nah. Well, I guess Francis.
I like my job. I like my job.
Everybody likes their job, you know. Everybody likes it. But people have spoken out that are still currently signed with the UFC. They've spoken out, but they've only gone to a certain extent with that situation, right? Because like you said, you're still employed, you're still contracted with the company, stuff like that. So
I've been here too long.
long.
I've had my job too long.
You get that elder statesman status. Francis, if he does go out there, let's say he does box, right? And I don't know how much you follow boxing, but I'm pretty sure you watch boxing. You're probably well more versed than I am. What would be a great matchup for him? Because I'm pretty sure he's going to try to box somebody with a name already, somebody that has been around.
Not, please, for the love of fuck, not Tyson Fury. Like, that was, for the love of God, like, please don't fucking box Tyson Fury in 4-ounce gloves. Like, honestly, that would be bad. Like, what's Usain Bolt up to? You know what I mean? Might run 100-meter sprint. That's not what the fuck I do. You know what I mean? Like, that's a different sport. Like, Francis Ngannou can punch really hard. Can he box? Like, can Tyson Fury box? Like, it's a fucking completely different sport. Completely different sport. Like, you can't fight Jake Paul, for the love of fuck.
All right, well, let's push for that. Everybody wants to see Jake Paul get his ass whooped, right, and get knocked out.
Yeah, let's do it. Like, okay. Jake Paul versus Francis Ngannou is a closer fight than Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury.
There's your headline right there.
There's your fucking headline, bro. Right, that is a more evenly close matchup.
There you go. Let's move on. Jon Jones is gonna come back after 3 years of getting fat to fight Cyril Gane at heavyweight. You know what I mean? I think this is a fun matchup. You know what I mean? Like if you looked at the options, right? You had Francis versus Jon Jones, you had Stipe versus Jon Jones, and then you have Cyril Gane versus Jon Jones. Where would you rank this matchup as in like difficulty level for Jon Jones? Do you think this would be the most difficult or the least difficult? How would you rank that?
I think Francis is the. Oh no, actually, I think Cyril's the least difficult, but still incredibly difficult.
Yeah,
I don't think. You know what I mean? Like stylistically, I can kind of see where he's going with it. Like obviously Stipe is like still a very sound wrestler, punches very hard and a legitimate heavyweight. Like Francis being one of the most hardest hitting heavyweights in the division, can wrestle, incredibly athletic. Like that's not the priority, but Cyril Gane is still an incredibly light-footed heavyweight. Like he's an incredibly agile young heavyweight. Still doesn't have that many fights. But he's incredibly, like, he's a legitimate heavyweight. Like, if you have ever stood next to him, like, that's like a large unit. Mm-hmm. And if we go back and look at, like, Jon Jones's fights, like, he was starting to slow down in his last, like, 4 or 5 fights. You can say he was, like, the division was getting stale as much as he wants to. But if you go back and watch those fights, like, he was a lot more flat-footed, and he was bullying a lot of those guys with just his physical size. Something that's not going to be an option against Cyril Gane. And then for you to say like, oh well, Francis Ngannou out-wrestled Cyril Gane. Jon Jones is a pretty good wrestler. Like he's the one that's going to be able to out-wrestle him. It's like, well, who is the last guy that Jon Jones out-wrestled? You know what I mean? Like, Cyril Gane is not...
DC, maybe?
He got him down a few times. You know what I mean? But that was like getting him down. I'm saying like out-wrestled him the way that Francis Ngannou out-wrestled him. You know what I mean? Like, he got a few takedowns on DC. But did he like hold him down and dominate him and lay on top of him and win the rounds the way that Francis Ngannou did to Cyril Gane? Like, not really. Like, so if we go back and we watch film about who he has legitimately like out wrestled, you know what I mean? Like, we're gonna have to go back
way back.
Like Cyril Gane is not Lyoto Machida. Like Cyril Gane is not Chael Sonnen. Cyril Gane is not
Brandon Vera
Jackson. Cyril Gane is not Brandon Vera. Like, we're not. That's not the same guy. You stand Cyril Gane next to Lyoto Machida. Like, that's not the same. That's not the same human. You know what I mean? So I feel like I'm excited to see it for sure. It's a pretty big question mark from my behalf on Jon Jones, because Cyril Gane he's a heavyweight, and he's an athlete, and he's very fleet-footed. You know what I mean? And Jon Jones was slowing down 3 years ago. If for the 3 years prior to Jon Jones not fighting, he was slowing down. So you're going like that. To me, as a incredibly well-versed fight fan, that looked like a fighter whose time had passed. And now he had 3 years off to, you know what I mean? Like, to what? To put weight on, or to I don't know. There's a pretty big question mark.
Yeah, that is a huge question mark. And one thing that I think people are forgetting is Cyril Gane is very young in his career as well. And he's already really fucking good. You know what I mean? He's a former champion, and he's fucking getting better. Like, his skill set hasn't even like fully developed into like a prime version of Cyril Gane. And I think like we're gonna see all these people talking about it's gonna be maybe an easy fight for Jon Jones, like when he gets in there and like tussles with him. I don't think so. I think Cyril Gane's gonna show some. I'm not saying that Cyril Gane's gonna win, but I think he's gonna show a lot more in this fight. I think Jon Jones will bring out a lot more, and his coaches will probably bring in big wrestlers or guys that have similar style to Jon Jones or similar body frame, and Cyril Gane is
like
just as
also
big as Jon
what
Jones.
is he even? What is his like training situation at the moment? Like, as far as I know, he got
Jon Jones.
Yeah, like
he's over there with Fight Ready with Henry Cejudo.
Yeah, so he got like the boot from Jackson Wink, right? Like,
yeah, he's gone.
And that was like, you can go back to
years ago.
Like, what? And you can go back to like what Anthony Smith has said about his like Jon Jones' career. He's like, I've been in there with the guy individually, like, he's not that good. He just listens to his corner, and he is coached incredibly well. That's what makes him so special. Well, now he's not being coached incredibly well. Now he's jumped a new camp with a guy that still fights. Yeah. Like, it's not like, he's not, what gave him his superpower is like no longer there. It's
maybe he was doing those 4-week camps like back in the day. That's why he looked like he was slowing down before he took the break off.
Could have been.
Could have been, right? But that's a great point you make about what Anthony Smith said, about like how he's coached really well. Because, when you look at Jackson Wink, yeah, you got Greg Jackson, you got Mike Winklejohn.
Yeah.
And those are probably two of the greatest coaches of all time, right? Up there in the history of the sport. Yeah, and you got guys, you got them yelling at you from cage side, instructing you how to stay on path with the game plan and what to look for and stuff like that. And if you know how to execute like Jon Jones does, then you do have these phenomenal performances. Yeah, it's an interesting fight. It's the biggest question mark. One of the biggest question marks of this year is when he comes back, what does he look like? And if he loses, what happens after that? You know what I mean? Like, if he wins, of course, it leads to the Stipe fight. But if he loses, like, what do they do? You know what I mean? With him, like, he can't go back to light heavyweight. He already put on like 60 pounds or whatever the fuck he did. We'll see, man. We'll see with Jon Jones. Now another thing that I think that's been in the news, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, was the USADA loophole, man. Have you peeped that out? Like, how, like, you could retire and have you peeped that out? You could retire and they don't test you, and then you could come back. And I think Carter's the one who fucking like took advantage of that, and then people found out. Or I don't know if he really knew, but that's what pretty much happened, right? And
Yeah,
now
like now like TJ's doing it.
yeah, it's wild, right? Like, they found that. How did you know what to look for? I guess you just
Like
gotta go
that's
on the
the thing,
website.
like because I've obviously like looked into it. Like you, even if you've like previously like taken steroids before you get to the UFC, there is like scientific research that like when you're on steroids and you're obviously at a like an inflated version of yourself and your body's performing and your muscles are performing at a like an advanced level, that even when you stop taking the steroids and you train very hard and you're committed, and that like obviously still takes like a lot of commitment, but your bodies and your muscles and your like neurological system still remember what it's like to operate at that like hyper performing level. So do I think that it is a loophole that's being taken advantage of? Yes, of course. Like, yeah, like maybe USADA needs to look into, like, because I do understand like the argument, like obviously taking certain steroids and this like certain band enhancements are going to help you recover from an injury, a serious injury, like a lot quicker. But then there needs to be like a line drawn, whereas like what enhancements are going to help with the injury, and then what are going to have like long-term physiological improvements that are going to be used to cheat the system. Like, I feel like if people are going to continually use this and apply this as a loophole, then we need to kind of zoom in on it and break down, well, what things that are illegal that are helping the injury and what things that are illegal that are going to help long-term performance. And maybe even when guys retire, we need to I don't know. That's hard to say.
It
That's
is.
hard to say.
It is.
How you gonna knock on my door when I'm retired and tell me to get my dick out? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'll probably punch you in the face. That's that's probably how that conversation's gonna go. So it's a difficult question to answer.
There's a few guys out there that you don't want to knock on their door. You know what I mean? And bother them.
Retired Dan Hooker is one of them, brother.
Yeah, it's when you look at that loophole that somehow they figure it out, because people are looking at that website all the time. And from my conversations with people that are in the bodybuilding industry, because when you talk to people in the bodybuilding industry, you half the time you're talking about things that will help you get big, get strong.
But also, no, they don't have a fucking clue about what applies to mixed martial arts. Like the same steroids that are utilized in the bodybuilding industry, and then the same steroids that and then the steroids that are used for mixed martial arts contests are very, very different.
Yeah, it's different, but then they're talking about, like, I had conversations about like things that could be utilized in sports, not in body, because bodybuilding, I don't know if you could call that a sport, but like in a real actual sport, you know what I mean? Like they're saying like there's a lot of stuff out there that you can take that are not going to come up on urine tests. They're not going to come up on blood tests, right now. They don't have the testing for it right now. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I'm like, fuck, you know, if you have money, if you have fucking money, you could find that shit. You could find doctors.
Facts. Hey, I'm in the USADA program. Like I
Yeah.
know that like if you really wanted to, you know what I mean? Like you could get away with it for sure.
You can, man. It's interesting because you know, like
it's not like a foolproof system.
No,
for sure.
no. And the reason why I bring that up is because like if you're in the UFC, I'm not talking about Bellator, PFL. I'm not talking about one champion. I'm talking about the UFC because they're the only promotion that has this program. You want it to be leveled, right? You want it to be fair, right? Even if you would fight somebody on steroids, that doesn't matter. That's separate. You want it to be fair, right? As fair as it can be, because you do sign the contract, and part of that contract is to not be on steroids. It's just not to be on PEDs, right? So you want them to step in that cage without that advantage or whatever. But then, you know, you mentioned about injury and like what steroids help with injury, because at hospitals they're always giving out steroids for people that went through surgeries and stuff like that. So you have to figure out like which ones are allowed and which ones are not. And this whole retirement thing and coming back out of retirement to fight against shit, it's like how many fighters secretly retired and come back? You know, like certain fighters, you don't see them for like a year, 2 years, 3 years sometimes, and then all of a sudden they got a fight booked. Were they retired from USADA at that time? Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. Like, is that a thing? Like, how many people have retired that we don't know that retired and have come back to fight? I want to know these statistics. Like, but this loophole thing, they need to figure this shit out, man. Because make it fair. You know what I mean? Make the shit fair. Anyways, let's shut this down, Dan. Let's that's a fucking whirlwind of a chat. All the people in New Zealand, Australia, Asia, North America, anywhere. If you got anything, just put it in the comments and we'll get back to you. Dan, appreciate the time and appreciate everybody that watched the live. We'll see you guys in the next pay-per-view.